I'm here today with Susan Chríodáin, who is the author of Leading Beyond the Numbers and is one of the 22 practical inspiration authors I know shortlisted for this year's Business Book Awards. So if you've just, I don't know what planet you've been on, but if you haven't sort of figured out what's going on yet, I'm talking to each of those shortlisted authors, short LinkedIn lives, just getting a little bit of backstory, really. Tell us a bit about the book, find out a little bit about how it was when you found out, all that kind of good stuff. So, oh, and I should also tell you that the book is 99 pennies or 99 cents in the Kindle store. So if you like the sound of what you hear, get over there before the 10th of September, which is when the awards evening is, and grab yourself a copy. Right. That's all the admin out of the way. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Alison. How are you?
I'm really well. And I'm really, really looking forward to just talking to you and teasing out kind of where this book came from. So what inspired you to write Leading Beyond the Numbers?
Well, my background is in accounting, and I haven't worked in accounting for years. But I read a book called How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of Our Brain. And it just woke up this something inside of me because Lisa Feldman Barrett, the author, who's a neuroscientist and psychologist, used accounting speak to help us understand our brain and how our brain works and then how emotions are made. And I learned all of this stuff that sent me off on all sorts of journeys to discover more. And I was like, well, can I take the financial statements and kind of rehash them and turn them into something that becomes useful for leaders in relation to perhaps planting the seed that each of us is a manifestation on a daily basis of our own balance sheet? So we're always in balance, but is that balance optimized? And where is the most important thing in any business, apart from people, is cash flow. So where is our cash flow? What is it? Where is it coming from? And how do we optimize our assets, minimize the liabilities, and keep our own equity alive? And okay, if you don't really understand the balance sheet terminology, I make it really, really simple. And it's not about the technical side. If anything, it's about a both and approach. And that's what it really was. And I think what I liked about the financial terminology as well is profit and loss account. It's not profit or loss account. And there's often this kind of misconception, I suppose, that we're all about profit and that we can only make profit. But actually, there's a realization that you can't make profit at any cost, and there's profit and loss. And it's the same in our own lives. We cannot carry on regardless of our humanity, which is what some of us try to do.
And it's really interesting that you use that phrase both and, because I think for most people it's an either or situation. Either you're talking about emotions or you're talking about finance, and you span that and sort of bridge that gap, don't you?
Yeah, and the interesting thing, like, numbers are data, they're information, they're a version of a story. And emotions are simply data as well. They're just data from our body. They're not always accurate or true, which is what I found out. And because of that, we can learn to reframe them or not fear them, and certainly not ignore them. And I think that's quite interesting that they're data, because if you think of how you use your financial data, it's what you do with it that counts. Yeah. And it's the same then when it comes to our own emotional state, because obviously if we're in an optimal emotional state, I hope this is obvious anyway, that we will be our best at work. And if we're not optimally resourced or optimally in the best emotional state, then we're not doing our best at work. And if we look around workplaces of today, they are deeply unhappy, miserable places. Not all of them, of course, but we definitely have an issue. And I think part of that is driven by trying to keep emotions out of the workplace because we fear them. We don't have any need to fear something that comes from us. We really don't. And it's kind of that simple. It's how do we make them our friends?
And it's also, the book is called Leading Beyond the Numbers. And I think that that's a really important piece, isn't it? So why does it matter for leaders to, there you go, you see, there's the book. Why does it matter for leaders to come to terms with this stuff?
Because, there's the old adage that if you can measure it, you can manage it. And I think we've gone down that path of having that very linear, analytical, reasoned approach to just measuring things or to managing things that can be measured. But as Margaret Heffernan says in her beautiful book, Beyond Measure, that like we measure everything at work except what counts. And I think as leaders, we're always trying to get the best out of people. We're always trying to manage performance. And there's a relationship between the performance of an individual and the performance of an organization. And if we ignore that relationship or look at it in very, well, that person isn't doing things the way I do it, therefore they don't need to work here. I'd be better off hiring in my own kind of image. Actually taking people and understanding what drives their behavior, how their brains work, how their bodies work, how important sleep is, for example, to performance, how important eating properly, exercise, the things that we know resource us, but we kind of poo-poo them because they're so basic. And actually, they're crucial.
They're not our business as a leader. We think that that's the individual business, and it's not my job.
Exactly. And I think then as well, we normalize our own how we cope with things. So, for example, if I get a cold and I go to work, and then you come in next week, Alison, or actually you phone me and you say, sorry, I'm not going to be in today, Susan, I have a cold. I'll kind of go, what's wrong with Alison? I can just get on and work. Why can't she? So I think we tend to validate our own experience and normalize things that actually we could take more responsibility for ourselves and examine it, but also we can't just assume everybody else behaves or is made up or experiences life in the same way that we do.
Yeah. I want to find out more about you, Susan, and your experience of having published the book, having written the book, published the book, and then your experience of discovering that it had been shortlisted for an award. Talk me through that.
So my book came out just over a year ago, and I mean, writing my book was just such an incredible experience. I learned so much, not only about the subject matter, but also about how useful it would have been if I had known some of this stuff when I was in leadership roles. And I guess that's the intention of the book, is to make the work life easier for leaders and managers. And since it's come out, I've had the opportunity to speak to some teams about this, which is just always brilliant, because I have a chapter called Reconciling Brain, Body and Behavior. So it is about how do we take what's in our brain, our body, and put that into how behavior shows up in the workplace. And then to get to enter an award, to have my book in the award listing and then have it shortlisted was just so cool. And, you know, I talk about emotions. And so going into the fact that I was feeling all sorts of like unhelpful emotions about being shortlisted, that I decided that actually I wasn't going to go, because there was just no way anyone was going to shortlist it. There was no way people were going to find it relevant. And I had managed to talk myself out of things. And what I realized that nothing had actually changed between the date I put that the nomination went in to the date of the shortlisting party, other than my own thinking and feeling about what was happening. And that is amazing. That's what happens in our workplaces. We talk ourselves in and out of things. We bring these fears from inside. And I felt like that was an embodiment of my own book. So I went to the shortlisting, as you know, Alison, and I was there in the evening, and I had kind of just gone along for the fun because I had talked myself out, but at least a part of me was there because I might as well be in the room, because you've always got to be in the room, don't you, if you can. And then they came. They didn't luckily have to read my name out. Another one of the reasons I had put down that they wouldn't. And so my book was called out in the leadership category. And that as well, for me, you know, I think the way the world is evolving and the uncertainty that we live with leadership needs to evolve as well. And leadership needs to have that better balance, or more optimal balance, between people and performance. Because being results driven or being people focused, it isn't an either or, it's a both and. And so I think that's fantastic that this book got recognized in the leadership category for that.
Well, I think it's fantastic too. And you're going to be with us, aren't you, on the 10th of September?
Absolutely. So, I am not talking myself out of that room.
No, exactly. And I think that just being in the room, that's such a great way of putting it. You've got to be in the room, and you'll deal with whatever happens. And it could be excitement, it could be disappointment, but you know, you just...
But they're all welcome.
They're all welcome. It's all data. Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun to talk to you today, and I'm really looking forward to the 10th of September. I'll see you then.
Thank you so much, Alison, and I look forward